Our society remains strong, prosperous, fruitful because we believe in myth. Welcome back, gentlemen. In this video we are going to discuss Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. Now, in this video I wanted to touch on an important lesson Yuval outlines about the role religion plays through communicating with the human race on a larger scale. Now, when I was younger, I was a little bit more cynical about the role of religion in my life. I felt like, and I do feel to some degree, that ideology is not always conducive to our best interests, and I believe that if you conform to a group narrative, that it doesn't leave a lot of room for nuance outside the boundaries of what that group believes. So it can leave you a little bit narrow-minded, and it can also leave you rather, closed to other ways of looking at the world. But I've always been a fan of religion as a means to create a moral code for somebody's life. And I actually think that it can be very, very valuable as long as you're not tied too closely to some of the boundaries and the rules and the parameters that said religion creates. With that being said, though, there is a very intriguing chapter in this book by Yuval, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, in which you begin to see the utility of not only religion but myth and stories in order to communicate and have peace with the human race at a larger scale. So if I take you back, many, many thousands of years to the age of our ancestors, particularly when we lived in kind of tribal communities, and one of the interesting concepts to know about when we lived in these communities is that we could only really, there were some constraints on the group limit. So you might be able to get along with 10 people reasonably well, but as soon as you start wandering into other people, it's always met with a little bit of animosity, and you're not sure if the individual will gel with your group. And then you can extrapolate that to, okay, if I can get on with 10 people, but surely I can't get along with 100 people in a tribe. So this is where myth, stories, and religion particularly comes into that role, and actually gives a over-encompassing moral guidance for that group to live in. And that's actually one of the key differences between human beings, but also animals as well, is that human beings are able to create things that aren't real in the 3D world. Animals have been observed to be able to, let's say, pass information out of reality and communicate it to other animals. So for example, chimps have been observed through their kind of calls, showing when there's like a tiger around. If you can imagine like a riverbed, and chimps are looking to go down to the riverbed, and they can actually tell other chimps, watch out, there's a tiger down there. What's also interesting is that they can lie, so they can say that there's a tiger, they get distracted by the tiger, and they go and grab the banana. But unfortunately, what the limitations are is that they don't have any imagination, and they can't create stories out of thin air. They have to base all of their communication on evidence that they're taking in through their senses. However, this is completely different with human beings and Homo sapiens, and that is, we can create stories, we can create legends that don't have any, let's say, 3D locality in reality. So we can, make them up. And it was actually the evolution of that particular skill, I guess you could say, or that, advancement, that allowed us to communicate with other human beings and people on a larger scale. So we were able to create a kind of overwhelming moral code to live by, because we all believed in the fire god who would condemn us if we didn't, fall within the rules of how the tribe operated, or the spirit of the woods, for example, that condemned a certain particular behavior. And this was something that was kind of all agreed upon, because we can't really put off too much faith in people. And this is why I believe modern Western culture is showing deep cracks at the moment, is because we've lost our sense of that overwhelming moral compass that doesn't conform to any kind of human authority. So we've kind of cut God off the head of our culture, and because God is ineffable, he is just that, he's the indescribable. We have placed our authority to look towards people, and people are just people. Our governments are made out of people who are fallacious. So having a bedrock of religion, I think, is a very, very important tool that we realized hundreds of thousands of years ago, that kept people together, even though these ideas are fairly, again, not scientific, not based in reality, not based in any evidence. Their service just surpasses that. And there's an interesting part in this book, Sapiens, in which Yuval describes some of the US amendments, I believe they are. The US amendments, I believe. And he describes it in a scientific sense, because I'll see if I can actually find it here. I'm actually drawing a blank where I can actually find this particular excerpt, but I'm just going to paraphrase it here. But essentially what Yuval does is he reads it from the perspective of a scientist, so very objective, based on reality, and then he reads it as it's written, and the amendments are written from a perspective or an acknowledgement of God, of a Christian God. So it's something along the lines of we all have innate value. We're all made in the image of God, in the incarnation of God, and by that basis, we're all the same. We're all valuable people. But if you take a scientific perspective and you read the same thing, of course, we're not all valuable. Some people are born, very different, and are not all equal in terms of, let's say a survival of the fittest basis. Some people are taller, some people are shorter, some people are faster, more physically, powerful. And of course, it's ludicrous to believe, by that amendment, that we're all equal. But yet our society remains strong, prosperous, fruitful, because we believe in myth, stories, legend, religion, and not basing everything off a purely scientific basis. So the power of religion stretches far beyond any throwaway comments like it's the root of all evil, or ideology is generally evil. And there's such a deeper narrative that binds us all together through stories, myth, legend, and it's the glue that I believe that holds contemporary society together presently. And as I prefaced before, we're beginning to see the cracks in that. Gentlemen, I think this is a excellent read, and I would highly encourage anyone who is interested in history and how we've come to be where we are at the moment to have a little read of that. If you also are a believer in the values of religion and moral code, do let me know, and perhaps your views are unparalleled to mine. If you subscribe to anything of which I've said here, brothers, you can always subscribe to me, and I'll bring you something else very interesting very soon. Take care.